Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. If you haven't seen GoLocal yet this morning, let me give you a couple quick updates. First and foremost, an interesting story looking at some anti-Semitic Facebook post. One gentleman we talked to who denies that there was a Holocaust stands by his words after his Facebook post and says, hey, listen, that's my point of view. Take a look at that article and the reaction by many in Rhode Island who find that type of attitude less than appropriate. So that's an interesting piece. Also, Carpinato Group and Dave's Marketplace just opened up a new supermarket today. Take a look at that. It's at one of the former Benny's locations. And Gary Sass, former head of RIPEC and director of administration for the state of Rhode Island, has a very interesting and forewarning piece about the future of Rhode Island's economy. And last but not least, it's Hot or Not Day. Take a look at everybody from Uber's CEO to Kamala Harris and all the way across the state and the country. Let's go to Bolzano, Italy. Rebecca Couto da Silva, how are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So in the United States, cases are up. Yesterday was the highest number of deaths since May, 1,500. And in Italy, numbers are starting to turn up and cause some worry. Talk about that.
Yeah, so numbers have gone up. I mean, people have been on vacation. People are feeling like some of the rules might be a little overblown. One thing that you see a lot in the Italian press is that Italians follow the rules when they agree with them in a way that is, and I'm not necessarily going to comment on that because I'm a foreigner living here, but there's a strong sense of we're going to do what we think is right. And one thing that happens when you beat the numbers down, when you flatten the curve, is it feels like you're safe. So I think that there is a lot of complacency in terms of how to behave. One thing that's happening is a lot of people are saying, no, these are coming from migrants, these are coming from tourists. And I'm not sure yet. I look at those articles and I'm just like, you know, I'm not sure how exactly they're determining whether it's community spread or not, or how a migrant would necessarily not be community spread if they've been here since February anyway.
Yeah,
so,
it is amazing how everyone blames somebody from out of town for the coronavirus, regardless of where you are in the world. I mean, it's just, you know, in Rhode Island, we blame tourists from other states. In other states, they blame Rhode Islanders. This virus doesn't know any borders. It just doesn't really care where you're from, who you are, where you live. It's going to move around as it wishes to.
Exactly. I mean, you see Vietnam and New Zealand that had almost 100 days or 100 days of no community spread. And then boom, there's community spread again. And it's just like, okay, it was still spreading, but among people who it was, you know, it was undetected. So yeah, I think that once it is down to a certain level, it feels like it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about, you know, the University of Washington does this tracking and modeling as to what the impact is based on the data looking out 2, 3, 4 months forward. The numbers for Italy, based on what they're seeing in the data and how it's emerging, is devastating. They see, unless there's strict restrictions with complete compliance and mask wearing, is at one level, they see a doubling, tripling of the number of deaths by December 1 to remarkably high numbers if folks don't comply with restrictions. Are people now getting the wake-up call, or are they still in the summer mode and sort of denial?
It is August. It is Italy in August. So the good thing is that schools and workplaces, schools and maybe perhaps I should say large workplaces, are really taking this seriously. But you know, something you've got to think about here is that a huge summer employer is agriculture and harvest. So those are not not indoor workplaces. Those are outdoor, and so it's, you know, it's not as important to necessarily wear a mask. I think it's required because you're handling other people's food. But I think that there's this, everyone has stepped outside for a while, and you can keep a meter. We have to keep a meter. You can keep a meter's distance, it's okay. the good thing is the schools are thinking about it, but um, without making any statistical models, I would say the same thing. Yes, I'm terrified for what's going to happen when we move back inside again. It's, I've been saying to everyone, if you walk around, you hear people coughing from their windows, and that's not a normal summer thing. And, uh, there are people that are isolating, so who are not catching this, who the second, in 3 weeks are back, whose kids are back in classrooms or whatever, it's all going to take off again. And there's just this sense of it's summer, it's 35 degrees, which is what, 85 or something.
Yeah.
It's hot. But it's important. And yeah, I'm concerned too. I hope the models are off, but I'm definitely concerned that there's a sense that we've already beaten it and that sense is not necessarily accurate.
It is hot in Italy in August. I can speak to that on
Yes.
a number of trips there. Schools, Governor Raimondo finally pushed back school openings from August 31st to now September 14th. She's not even going to make a final decision on what the structure of the opening is going to be, whether it's in classroom, a hybrid, or all online learning until August 31st now. Has there been any change with this uptick in cases in Italy? Is there any changes to how schools are reopening? We've talked about it last week in depth.
Yeah, it would go from yellow. So we're reopening in yellow. It would go from yellow to red, which is homeschool, or not homeschool, but distance learning, which for me is pretty much homeschool for a number of parents. But so we're still in yellow. If we have to go to red, we'll go to red, and we'll go back to what happened in March and April and May. I hope that's not the case. I hope that, for example, also like I should start a PhD program in November with something like very few other people. And I think that if they shut schools down again, they're just going to shut it all down. Instead of saying, oh, well, this group of 10 could go forward live, I think we'll all be sitting here in front of the Zoom checkerboard, right? And so it's unfortunate, I think, that things have to happen in that way where it's like, okay, no, there's this outbreak in this place, so the whole country is going to shut down. But on the other hand, people, have to be careful. And if that's not happening, if it starts spreading, then it's not fair to the people who are very vulnerable. We don't necessarily know who they are.
Spain's also seeing an increase in numbers. The UK seems to be almost a basket case right now, and they're literally debating pubs versus schools. What's the sense across the EU as to where the disease is? US, it's still out of control. As you mentioned, New Zealand went 102 days without a case, then got 4 cases, and they locked down. They take that very seriously. In Rhode Island, a good day for us is 100 new cases. In New Zealand, they locked down the country for 4 cases. So talk a little bit about what's the overall tenor in the EU relative to where the disease is right now.
Yeah, and this is sort of interesting because one thing that we're seeing a lot of is, and actually I'll be looking at this during my PhD studies, but you're seeing a lot of fracturing and sort of anti-EU sentiment when other stresses are present. And so this is a stress. And so France says, oh, look at Spain, look at my neighbor. Germany says, oh, look at my neighbors. Everyone sort of says, oh, look how you guys are doing. At the beginning it was, oh, Italy's mismanaged this so terribly. And there's not so much a pan-EU sense. I think that Italy was looking for a bailout, and Italy's actually a net contributor to the EU. And the EU was very much like, no, you've got all this debt already, and so I think that it's very difficult for countries to come together and say, hey, we're Europe right now. We saw that in the reinstitution of the borders. Austria just shut, both in Schengen, Austria shut down the border with Italy. And that's it. Germans wanted to go to Italy. Too bad, so sad. Can't get through Austria.
Too bad, so sad. When was that shutdown of the Italian-Austrian border?
Oh, I think it was like March 8th. It began March 8th.
Oh, no,
Let me
that one, but then it's been reopened. Has it been shut down a second
Yeah.
time?
No, not now.
Oh, oh, it's still open, even though
Yeah.
there's rising cases in Italy. Where do you see Italy going? Do you think Italy will respond, go back to social distancing more vigorously, go back to sort of that high compliance with mask wearing? Or do you think you're now, once you've lost that cycle, you run the risk of bad behavior, more spread, more cases, more death?
I think if you start seeing a significant number of people requiring intensive care, then it's going to come down again. I actually had a friend who was supposed to visit me in, I think it was April. And in February, I told her, don't worry, Italy is going to come down really hard on this. And at some point, you'll get to come see me. And that point hasn't happened yet. I was wrong that it would happen. I thought it would happen sooner. But I was absolutely right. And Italy is going to come down hard on this. And if people start dying again at the rates they were dying before, I would fully expect to see the central government take over again. Even with us, for example, 2 or 3 days ago, it was announced that there would start to be checks of service workers again. And like there would be nightly checks in restaurants, et cetera, because people are concerned about the rising numbers. So it's not going to take Italy by surprise again, but Italy's going to take it serious again.
Last word to you. How worried are you about the next 30, 45 days and what the impact of that might be to daily life, your daughter's school, your continued education, all balancing life as you move forward?
Yeah, I think that she's especially, and there are a lot of kids out there like her, but she's going from elementary to middle school. She didn't get the elementary school graduation, just as kindergartners didn't get their kindergarten graduation, high schoolers didn't get their high school graduation. I think there's this whole contingent that like had a crisis at their graduation every 4 years from high school to college. But yeah, so she's in a very important transition, as are students going to high school, going to elementary school. And for me, I can learn with Zoom. I'd rather get up and move around and not have to go to the closest grocery store and go sit down in socially distanced classrooms. I'd prefer that, but you have to do what the government says you got to do, especially when you're here at the government's pleasure. So, I am concerned there will be a red light situation again. I really hope it can stay yellow, because I think that for the kids' development, they should be around each other. It's a big thing going from elementary to middle school. It gets harder. There are really hard exams for these kids to get out of middle school. And when they're studying these exams, it's good to have these social bonds so you don't feel so alone. It's very difficult to get out of middle school in Italy. And to have that social rupturing, I think, is hard. So I think that they're going to come down hard on having us do everything that we need to do to stay in terms of educationally in yellow light. If it's that we got to go 2 weeks back into lockdown, I'm sure they'll do it. And I hope that they don't. But if the numbers require it, then the numbers require it. I'm not going to say I should be allowed to go shopping at Aldi in Bolzano when people are dying because we're exercising our freedoms in ways that are not healthy. So I'll go back to shopping at the store that's very close to here. And that's how it is. But let's hope we can all stay in yellow light until the virus changes in some way, they find a treatment, or they're able to develop a safe vaccine.
Rebecca Couto da Silva, thank you so much for Skyping in from Bolzano, Italy. We really appreciate this every week. It gives a great insight to another part of the world and puts some perspective on this. Obviously, America is not doing as well as Italy, but there's worries in Italy now of an uptick. So this virus knows no boundaries. It has no limitations. For everyone, please come back at 12 noon. We'll be live with Dr. Michael Fine. He'll be talking about the new numbers. He'll also be talking about in-person voting versus mail ballot voting and what the benefits of each are. And also we'll talk about schools as well. Stay tuned for more updates on GoLocal. And also please stay safe and wear your mask. Thank you.